What's good, ladies and gentlemen? We back in this bitch with the guide ARK once again, but this time I'll be covering my class Shadow Hunter on behalf of Lost ARK. The name's Kaiju, or Kaiju for short, and I typically make guides based on the main class of my choice. Feel free to check out my other content and guides if this is your first time watching me, and feel free to check me out on Twitch. Link will be in the description. With that being said, let's get this shit started. For this video, I'll be showcasing the build for 3v3 Demonic Shadow Burst style. This build will specialize in Demon Form and using Shadow Burst meter to increase your chances of using Demon Form more than once. It's a fun build that capitalizes on the idea of high risk, high reward, but rewards those who are skilled enough with Demon Form greatly. In other words, if your Demon Form skills are good enough, you can pretty much hard carry a good majority of your games. Otherwise, you're gonna have lots of fun spamming Demon Form. Now let's go ahead and show you what stat build you'll be running. With the 1000 points you're given, you'll be maxing out specialization at 750 and domination for 249 with crit at 1. And here's the stats that specialization gives you. Increase demonized skill damage by 64.37%, essentially your demon form abilities. Release encroachment meter recovery upon hit increase by 53.64%, basically more meter increase with each hit. Demonized effect time increase by 32.18%, so that means longer duration in the demon form. And lastly, awakening skill damage is increased by 40.98%. So as you can tell, this is pretty much the main thing you should prioritize if you're going to use the demon form build. Your demon abilities get increased damage, you get longer duration in demon form, you get more meter gain with each attacks, and even with your awakening abilities will do more damage. And with domination, you get damage to push or debuff foes by plus 15.27% and damage dealt to staggering foes by 17.78%. With both specialization and domination by your side, you'll do lots of damage and have a stronger demon form to play with than most. This is essentially the most damage output you can build in terms of stats for PvP demon form. And lastly is the 1 point in crit. This 1 point in crit gives you a 0.03% critical rate. This right here is up to your own personal philosophy. Some would argue this 1 point doesn't matter, so therefore just stick it in crit. Some would also argue that the 1 point won't matter, so just stick it to your secondary stat point to 250. Either way, it's up to you, but I'll give the 1 point crit the benefit of a doubt and see if it helps, and even in the slightest. And this right here is what I would build for group PvP demon form build. Full damage specialization and domination with 1 point into crit. Of course, there are other types and methods to stat builds, but because we are going demon form style, this is more or less the main one you'll use for full damage and confidence in your demon form carry. Next up, we have the main 8 abilities you'll be using for this build. First one up is Sharpen Cut. First stat you'll spec into will be excellent mobility. The stat will allow you an extra 2 meters of distance to better the gap closing capabilities of this engage. The further away you can engage from, the better your capitalization will be as an assassin overall. Next will be infiltration attack. This stat is the main reason that allows your ability to seemingly teleport to a targeted location into a Beyblade manner. It's a great choice to quickly catch your opponents off guard and even quickly connect your combos together. Then lastly, demon cut. This is the demon build, so of course any chance you get to gain more shadow burst meter for your attacks, it's kind of mandatory. The more meter you gain for some of your abilities, the more you can use demon form. This ability gives you low staggering, back attack, and super armor paralysis immunity. Next up is grind chain. With this, you'll only invest enough points to grab 2 stats. First one being Earth Attack. This gives your grind chain a bigger AoE radius by plus 20%. The sole purpose of this ability is to disrupt and CC your opponents. The bigger the AoE, the easier and higher chances you have of landing this on not only one target, but multiple if possible. And the second stat of choice will be Impaired Movement. This will give your opponents minus 50% movement speed, slow for 3 seconds. As I said before, the main purpose of this ability is to catch and slow, not necessarily damage. So in this case, having this long range ability to disrupt and leave them with a massive slow is great for your own follow-up combos, or even setting up plays for your teammates. It's an unprotected movement with back attack, but serves a great purpose of long range slow and disruption engage. Next up is Demonic Slash. This ability just so happens to be your main source of movement when it comes to all aspects in the game. The first stat you'll spec into is excellent mobility. It gives you an additional 2 meters of distance upon usage. Then nimble movement for a movement speed of 20% for 5 seconds. Then lastly, chain charge. This allows you to use the ability 1 more time within 3 seconds for an extra movement. Essentially, all 3 of these stats are picked for your movement options. Being able to double dash with an extra distance and having that nice movement speed right after is a staple every Shadow Hunter will use to get around a lot easier. This ability has a back attack and super armor paralysis immunity. Next up, we have Demonic Clone. First stat you'll spec into is Naively Honest. This stat gives you paralysis immunity during the usage of this ability. The more protection you have during key damage and combo parts, the better off you'll be. Next stat is Fist of Destruction. This not only makes the ability quick into 2 hits, but also deals a lot more damage that knocks up your opponents as well. And lastly, once again, Release Encroachment. It increases your stagger level to mid, and the Shadow Burst meter increases. Any chance we get to obtain more Shadow Burst meter, we'll definitely take it, since that's the goal of this build. This ability has back attack with now staggering levels to mid and paralysis immunity during the skill. Next up, we have Thrust Impact. First stat you'll grab is the Swift Thrust. This will allow your ability to finesse the engage a bit better. Then you'll also grab the Enhanced Explosion. This will deal 50% more damage and knocks back your targets. Since this is predominantly used as a combo finisher for me personally, this is where I prioritize the damage and knockback capabilities, rather the stun effect instead. However, you definitely can use the stun effect for more combo connection if that's your preferred method. And lastly, Encroaching Power for more Shadow Burst gain and lower cooldown. Of course, Shadow Burst gain is pretty self-explanatory at this point. This ability is a mid stagger with back attack. You'll mostly use this as a way to finish your combo or finish the kill if possible. Next up is Rising Claw. First stat you'll grab, Naively Honest. Once again, same logic here. The more protection during your abilities, the better. Then Critical Blow for more damage, and Grasp of Death to add that touch of airborne CC to continue the combo and more damage overall. It's a counter ability with low staggering and frontal attack type. This ability will be one of your main CC connectors and even damage output. Next up is Piercing Thorn. Grab the following: Enhanced Spike, Triple Thorn, and Massive Thorns. All of these increase damage overall and make the AoE size much bigger. This is going to be one of your core long range knockdown CCs to engage on or assist your teammates. Since the AoE is pretty huge and the damage is considerable, this is why it's pretty much a staple ability and is typically built in these exact 3 stats across various different builds you'll find others using as well. It's a mid stagger and helps to put pressure from afar while acting as a great setup. And lastly, Demon Vision. You'll use the last remaining points to grab Quick Release and Electric Discharge. The Quick Release is perfect for the purpose of this ability. It's mainly a quick long range or medium to long range CC to disrupt your opponents. This is the only time I would go for something that isn't Shadow Burst gain, and that's mainly due to the fact that even with the gain on, I don't gain all that much meter anyways, since the ability itself is used for a short burst. So at that point, the CC here would be much more value for yourself and your teammates. You still have 3 other abilities that give you lots of meter and an ultimate anyway, so you won't be missing too much meter if you don't get it here. Demon Vision is going to be one of your main engages from afar, while also giving you the option to hold the charge for a bit more damage. This ability also has mid to high stagger. And for your ultimate, you'll be using Gate of Eruption. This ability is the best option that you can pick for PvP. Its high damage output mixed with high staggering on knockback at the end animation is why this ultimate has lots of potential for setup and gives you a ridiculous amount of Shadow Burst meter. Anytime you hit anybody with this ultimate, you are guaranteed enough Shadow Burst meter to go into demon form. This ability always acts as your first active play, getting you a quick advantage of catching your opponents and immediately going into demon form. The casting animation is push immunity and debuff immunity, so you do have a high chance of not getting interrupted, but still could potentially get CC'd by other means. This right here is my preferred build and setup for the demon build in 3v3. And to make things more clear on how it's designed, I'll go ahead and classify each ability by what their purpose and usage is. For long range poke and CC, we have options such as Grind Chain, Piercing Thorn, and Demon Vision. For damage engage, we have Sharpen Cut. This could also work as a pseudo disengage. Then we have the movement engage and disengage, Demonic Slash, not including your spacebar of course. Then we have damage and combo pieces with CC, Demonic Clone, Rising Claw, and Thrust Impact. Thrust Impact also works amazingly as a combo finisher. Now you kind of get an idea of what kind of kit and versatility you'll be working with in the set. This build is pretty common and popular with both demon and non-demon builds for PvP, since at least 6 of these abilities are mandatory staples, but of course the big difference is the stat choice of more Shadow Burst meter. Otherwise I have one last thing to cover, and that would be ability alternatives, depending on your personal method and playstyles. One style that I played with for a long time before I decided to switch up was the aggressive mix-up build. Only one ability was different in this case, and instead of Grind Chain, I used Demolition instead. On this ability, I used excellent mobility, quick attack, and charge slash. The main reasoning and purpose of this ability and its stat choices are to engage and disengage. It's an ability that works as an aggressive hard CC engage that sets up combos and damage while also acting as pseudo movement. You'd not only have demonic slash and spacebar, but also this ability as well if you really needed to move around the map aggressively. The only downside is losing one long range poke and the unprotectiveness of this ability that will get you caught out sometimes if you try to engage a heavy CC target. But if your positioning and decision making are next level, you can definitely push the strategy and style pretty far. But once you face a hard matchup, there's only so much you can do. Another option that works instead of both of these abilities is the Cruel Cutter. This one will have a similar goal as Grind Chain, a long range poke to not only disrupt but also to deal decent damage to make space for you and your teammates. On this ability, I would run Nimble Movement, Ranged Attack, and Boomerang. This set allows you to deal considerable damage with the boomerang pushing enemies away and coming back to you for more damage to CC. It has a nice movement speed addition to it, and it has mid stagger and back attack as well. The point management would change up depending on what you would prioritize out of these abilities. If you wanted to max out Demolition or Cruel Cutter, you'd have to take some points off from other abilities. And one last thing to mention before I wrap up this video, the auto attack has a special interaction with its purple effects. If you follow through with your auto attack animation up until it waits to receive its blades back, the moment you turn purple, that's when you attack once more again for the special timing. This allows you to CC your opponents in the process, and it's a nice little interaction worth mentioning since it kind of does come in handy in some situations. I do have other videos planned for Shadowhunter and PvP as well, such as closer in-depth look and guide on the demon form itself, a short video comparison of both Awakening and how good either one is for both PvE and PvP, or even CC mechanic guide, Shadowhunter combo guide, plenty of other things to cover and tackle in depth that I'll plan out later down the line. So if you found this video helpful, go ahead and share it with your Shadowhunter homies. And of course, any questions you guys have, let me know in the comments down below. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested or team demon build for Shadowhunter, and if not, let me know your personal thoughts as well. With that being said, I'll go ahead and catch you guys in the next video. Peace.